3 hours of debugging for a 4-minute fix. A forgotten host vars file from 6 months ago silently overrode your group vars in production. No errors, no warnings, just wrong config. Here's exactly why. Let's break down Introduction to Ansible, how it works, and the exact mistake behind that failure. Ansible is an open-source automation tool that eliminates manual toil. You describe the desired state of your servers in YAML playbooks, and Ansible connects over SSH to make it happen, with no agents installed on the target machines. Its idempotency means running the same playbook 100 times produces the same result as running it once. Variable precedence is a deterministic override chain from lowest priority, role defaults, to highest command line extra vars. The rule is simple: the last definition wins. But the chain is 22 levels long, and most teams only use a handful, leaving invisible traps when variables collide across inventories, roles, and includes. The most important levels to internalize: extra vars override everything, then task vars, then role and include vars, then host vars, then group vars, and finally role defaults. The rule that causes the most surprises: host vars always overrides group vars silently, without any log entry. This playbook demonstrates variable precedence. The variable myVar is set at the play level, then overridden by setFact at the task level. When you run it, the debug output shows task level because setFact has higher precedence than play vars. Ansible's architecture relies on 3 building blocks. The inventory lists your servers, playbooks map groups to tasks, and modules are the idempotent tools that actually perform actions. Get these right and everything else follows. Here's a static inventory file in INI format. It defines groups like web servers and databases and sets group variables. Static inventories work for small, fixed fleets, but for cloud environments you'll want dynamic inventory. Dynamic inventory pulls host lists directly from cloud APIs. This OS-EC2 plugin configuration groups instances by tags, uses caching to avoid API rate limits, and ensures your inventory is never stale. New instances appear automatically. This production playbook pattern uses idempotent tasks, handlers that only fire on change, and a debug task to show resolved variable values. The template task notifies a handler to reload Nginx only when the config actually changes. This playbook deploys Nginx with idempotent tasks. The debug task shows the resolved Nginx port value, helping catch variable precedence issues early. The handler uses reloaded to avoid dropping connections. Ad-hoc commands let you run single commands across your fleet without writing a playbook. They run in parallel, respect inventory groups, and handle failures gracefully. Always use limit to test on one host first. These ad-hoc commands replace SSH for loops. The ping module checks connectivity, df checks disk space, and the service command restarts Nginx. The limit flag restricts execution to one host for safety. Roles package tasks, handlers, templates, and variables into reusable units. Ansible automatically loads files from the standard directory structure. Use community roles from Galaxy for common software, but always pin the version. This is the standard role directory structure. Ansible loads tasks/main, YML, handlers/main YML, defaults/main, YML, templates, and files automatically. The structure is the loading contract, deviate from it, and things silently don't load. Always pin community roles to specific versions in a requirements, YML file. Treat a version bump like a library dependency upgrade, test in staging, read the changelog, then deploy to production. Production deploys needs safety rails. Use block rescue for error handling and rollback, serial for rolling updates, and Ansible Vault for secrets. Set max fail percentage to control how many failures are tolerated. This production playbook uses block rescue for error handling, serial, 3 for rolling updates, and Vault for secrets. If any task fails, the rescue block rolls back to the previous release. The always block sends a notification regardless. This is the same issue we highlighted at the start. Here's exactly why that happened. A team deployed a config change via group vars/production, but a forgotten host vars file from a debugging session 6 months earlier set the database hostname to the staging database. Because host vars has higher precedence than group vars, the staging hostname won silently. No error, no warning, just corrupted data. A stale host vars file from a debugging session 6 months ago silently overrode group vars with engine export. 80 instead of 8080, because host vars has higher precedence than group vars in Ansible's variable precedence ladder. The fix was to remove the stale host vars file and use Ansible inventory, host to verify the resolved variable set before every production deploy. Adding a debug task that shows the resolved value also helps catch surprises early. Always know which level your variables are defined at. This is the exact line that caused the incident. A host vars file left over from a debugging session 6 months ago set db host to the staging database. Because host vars overrides group vars silently, production traffic was routed to staging with no warning. If a host vars file exists for a host, it silently overrides any group vars or Playbook vars. In this case, a forgotten host vars file set engine export to 8080, overriding the intended 80 with no error or log entry. Running an ad-hoc command without limit can have catastrophic consequences. This command would remove engine X from every web server simultaneously. Always test with limit first. Installing a Galaxy role without a version pin is like npm install without a lockfill. A minor version update could change default variables or restart services without warning. Always pin the version. The 22-level variable precedence ladder described in this article is accurate for Ansible 2x and 3x. However, Ansible 4.0.0, released 2021, introduced a change. Role vars and include vars were reordered slightly. Always check the official precedence docs for your exact Ansible version, as the hierarchy can shift between major releases. The article mentions using Ansible inventory, host, to debug variable precedence, but you can also use an assert task to fail early if a variable is not what you expect. This catches silent overrides before they cause damage. The article recommends dynamic inventory with caching, but a common production pitfall is stale cache after infrastructure changes. If you add or remove instances, the cache may serve outdated host lists for up to cache timeout seconds. Always invalidate the cache manually, delete the cache file, after scaling events, or set cache timeout low enough for your change frequency. To debug variable precedence issues, use Ansible inventory, host to see the fully merged variable set. Add debug tasks to your playbooks to print resolved values. Use check for dry runs and VVV for SSH debugging. Let's run through some common interview questions. What is variable precedence in Ansible? A 22-level hierarchy that determines which value wins when the same variable is defined in multiple places. How does host vars differ from group vars? Host vars has higher precedence, level 19, and overrides group vars, level 14, silently. How can you debug variable precedence? Use Ansible inventory, host hostname vars to see the resolved variables before running a playbook. And a few frequently asked questions. What is the highest precedence level? Extra vars E on the command line, level 22. Can variable precedence be modified? No, the hierarchy is fixed and cannot be changed. Why does host vars override group vars? Because host vars is at level 19, higher than group vars at level 14, and Ansible enforces this silently. Let's recap the key takeaways. Variable precedence has 22 levels, learn the top 8. Host vars silently overrides group vars, always verify with Ansible inventory, host. Use debug tasks to show resolved values. Ready to go deeper? Up next, Ansible playbooks explained, then Ansible roles and best practices, then Ansible inventory management, and Ansible variables and facts. Find them all at TheCodeForge.io. Thanks for watching. The full article and code examples are covered in detail at TheCodeForge.io.